With summer travel underway, I got to thinking about rest stops and some of the rest stops that I've visited in my lifetime. And I came upon this website on Reddit. It's a Reddit thread called Creepy Encounters. And this is about rest stop encounters. Now, I just wanted to say something before everybody gets into this next video. None of the stories in this video are proven to be true. These are all just stories that I found on Reddit pages about creepy encounters. And these are people's stories. I haven't used anyone's names. And I just wanted to let everyone know that. And a couple of these were, while they were mostly creepy, a couple of them were humorous. And there are one or two places within the videos where I do kind of get choked up laughing. And I know this is not typically the type of video that I talk about, but I just thought I would change things up a little bit today, make a video that had just a little bit more, that was a little bit less dreary and eerie and dark. And so I just wanted to let everyone know that, and I hope that you enjoy this video. And I just thought I'd share this. It's a little different. It's a little different than what I normally talk about, but I wanted to read this one. About 10 years ago, I stopped at a rest stop on I-95 in Massachusetts. It was about 10 p.m. As I pulled in, there were no other cars there, and just as I was about to park, I noticed a vehicle turn on its lights and pull into the cars-only parking lot behind me. I pulled into a parking space facing the highway, and this car pulled in about 2 spots down from me, directly beside of me. I think that this car was sitting in the truck parking lot as I pulled in. Just as I was about ready to open my car door, I just had this creepy feeling, and I put my car in reverse and burned rubber out of there. I took a quick look as I was pulling around. I couldn't really tell who it was, a man or woman, but it was just such a scary encounter for me that I just got out of there. Looking back on it, I realized I probably should have called the police, because it appeared, after I thought about it, I realized this person was sitting in the truck parking lot waiting for a car to come and pull in, and then they were pulling in. Who did they expect? What was their intentions? I know this isn't the craziest story on this sub, but I just thought that this was a creepy thing. To whoever you were in a rest stop on I-55, this was 3 years ago. Earlier tonight, I was on my way through Mississippi on Interstate 55. I pulled into a rest stop that I've been to a million times just outside of Memphis, Tennessee. I've never had anything unusual happen there, but this was late at night. As I pull into the parking lot, there were a couple of trucks parked over in the truck lot, and I figured that there were some truckers who were just pulling in there to get a few hours of sleep. I stopped at this one because it's pretty well lit, and they usually do have a security guard on the grounds. So I'm a big guy. I'm 6'1", about 180 pounds, so I'm not usually intimidated. But tonight, something different happened. I walked into the bathroom, and things seemed normal. I walked down, and I noticed that the door on the handicap stall was closed, and I didn't give it much thought. I go up to the urinal, and I begin to pee, and I just get this gut feeling, this weird, strange feeling. And as I'm about finished with my business, I hear the door unlock on the bathroom stall, and I hear shoes moving. And that sinking feeling just turned to alarm bells immediately. I just freak out. I hear someone walking. This isn't a very big bathroom, but I have my back to this stall door, and I didn't want to turn around and look. So I just sip up as quickly as I could, and I took off running, and I didn't look back. I didn't turn my head to see who was behind me or anything. I ran as fast as I could back to my car. I unlocked my door as quickly as I could and jumped inside. I didn't wait around to see who or what came out of that bathroom. I just got the hell out of there. This is one of the few times that I have had this deep sense of fear. Whatever it was or whoever it was, I hope you slipped and fell in my piss. My family and I were driving from Ohio to Wyoming one holiday season to visit family. This was about 10 years ago. So up ahead we see a sign for a rest stop coming up. We decided that it would be best for us to stop since we didn't know how far it would be before our next rest stop. Just as we pulled in, there was a truck that had been following us that also pulled in. Giving it no thought, we just thought this was also a traveler who was in need of the bathroom. My head was turned to the right as my wife was getting our daughter out of the car. I saw this truck pull in, and I saw this driver, and I just had this shiver run through me. He was a skinny white guy with gray, scraggly beard and dark eyes. He was wearing a dirty, dingy blue plaid jacket. He got out of his 1990s brown pickup truck and started rummaging through the bed of the truck. My wife didn't want to go into the rest stop alone. Because of the guy, we both had just got this weird feeling, and we just thought maybe we were just being a little silly. This was just a man who was traveling just like we were, and we were about 100 miles away from the nearest big city, so we figured we were just... So we took our daughter and we headed inside. After a few minutes, the man stopped rummaging through his truck, and he also walked inside. My wife and daughter went into the bathroom and went into the women's bathroom, and I stood outside in the lobby. I stood outside the bathroom door as I wanted to make sure that nothing happened to my wife and daughter. The older man came into the lobby, and he just kept standing there. He was standing across the room from me. He didn't go into the bathrooms. And I just had this feeling that he thought that I probably went into the men's room and that my wife and daughter were in the women's room alone. As soon as my wife came out of the bathroom with our daughter, the three of us rushed back to our car. And just as we were getting inside and putting on our seatbelts, I told my wife that the man hadn't even gone into the restroom, that he just stood in the lobby the whole time, and we both agreed that this had been a close call. If I had gone into the men's room and left the lobby empty, would he have gone into the women's bathroom after my wife and daughter? That's not even the end of the story. Well, we did 100 more miles of driving, and we went through a number of turnoffs. We didn't see the truck, and we thought this man, maybe he was just waiting for us to leave so that he could use the bathroom in privacy. However, after we got to this place that we were going, which was 100 miles away from the rest stop, there he was. We saw this man in a store not even 20 feet away from us. It was the same man in the same shirt. Thankfully, he didn't see us, and we got the heck out of there. This happened to me and my husband as we were moving from the east to the west coast. I was about 21 years old at the time. We were making a long cross-country trip, and it was just me and him and our dogs. So we had stopped at quite a few rest stops along the way, and we never had any problems at any of them. We never encountered anything out of the ordinary. My husband was always the one doing the driving, and we would stop every few hours to get out and stretch our legs and let our dogs stretch their legs. But this was something that's strange that happened to us. There was only one other vehicle in the parking lot at this one truck stop that we pulled into. The rest area was fairly empty. There was only one truck parked in the truck area. I get out of the car and let my husband know that I'm going to go to the bathroom. I tell him not to let the dogs out until I come back, so that way there would be 2 people watching the dogs. Being that it was late at night, my husband decided to walk most of the way with me to make sure I got there okay. I go into the bathroom and I came back out and was preparing to get the dogs out to walk them. As I was doing this, my husband went inside to take his restroom break. Now, apparently, according to her story, her husband had waited outside the ladies' room while she went inside. There was nothing out of the ordinary that happened, and when she came back out, he goes in to use the bathroom. Even though it was a well-lit area, I just felt a little eerie being outside by myself. But I got my dogs out of the car, and my dogs are German Shepherd mixes. They're big dogs. So I'm walking my dogs in the grassy area, waiting for my husband to come back out, and I noticed that one of the semi-trucks that had been sitting on the far side starts up. I hear the truck start up, and he starts to drive slowly, like he's going to pull out of the parking lot. This didn't seem too worrisome because I thought he's probably slept a few hours, and now he's getting ready to get back out on the road. I had the doggy bags, getting ready to clean up after my dogs, and I'm starting to head back toward the trash can. But suddenly these bright headlights come on this truck, and I'm blinded. I can see that the semi that I thought was leaving had pulled up as close as possible to the car lot, and they were pointing their headlights directly in my direction. I quickly toss the bags into the trash can, and I start walking back to my car. Now, her husband apparently was taking quite a bit of time in the bathroom at this point. I mean, this is my own observation. As I'm walking away, the man starts flashing his lights over and over again. I'm almost to my car, and I'm wondering, what's going on? I start to get creeped out. My dogs begin to get creeped out, and they begin to growl. I finally made my way to the car, and the guy is still flashing his lights. I just stood there, staring at him, and then he finally stopped flashing his lights. I'm getting my keys out to unlock the door, and suddenly my dog starts to raise their hackles. They begin to growl, and I hear the sound of this truck driver's truck opening. I see that his door is now fully open, and he's not that far from me because he had pulled his truck all the way up as close as he could get to the car parking area. I'm standing there, and at this point my husband comes walking out of the bathroom. He walks up behind me, takes the dog's leash, and he's just standing there staring at this truck driver whose foot is coming down out of the truck at this point. My husband and I both stand there united, staring at him as he sees my husband, as he's climbing down out of the truck. He had climbed down out of the truck, and he sees the husband, and this is when he climbs back up into the truck and shuts the door. I told my husband about him flashing his lights at me, and he said this is a method that truck drivers use to flash down women at rest stops. So he tells her this is what this guy thought. He thought that you were out there alone, how he didn't see your husband with her when they pulled into the parking lot, and the fact that she had her dogs on the leash, and she's at a rest stop, not a truck stop. There's a big difference. Most people don't pull into rest stops for that behavior. Now, there may be some. I'm not saying there's not. But most people pull into rest stops because they have to rest. They have to use the bathroom. Let their dogs out. Let their children go to the bathroom, and so on. Most people don't hang around there for very long. And I do think the whole situation was creepy because the guy obviously didn't either know that my husband was even there or just didn't care. So that was just one more story that I thought I would share. And I don't want people, like I'm saying, I'm just sharing these stories as I come upon this thread on this subreddit. And they're not all about truck stops. They're not all about truck drivers. This one was also from 8 years ago. I was driving by myself on a highway, cranking out some killer tunes and drinking a big gulp. I decided to stop at a Taco Bell drive-thru and I ordered some food. Not long after that, about an hour later, my stomach begins to cramp and I decided I have to find the bathroom. So I drove about 2 miles to the nearest rest stop along the highway. It's about 1:30 in the morning and it's pretty vacant. There's only one other vehicle in the parking lot. I assume it's just another road tripper pulled over to go to the bathroom. I get out and I run into the men's room. As I'm using the bathroom, I hear footsteps coming in. I hear someone holler out, "Hey, man." And I'm just sitting there like, okay, I'm in the bathroom. I'm using the bathroom. There's a dude standing outside the stall hollering, "Hey, man," at me. I sit there trying to be as silent as possible. I'm sorry for laughing, but I can just picture this guy in the bathroom at this rest stop alone at 1:30 in the morning. And somebody comes in and shouts, I can't even finish telling this story. It's too funny. All of the okay. All of a sudden, the guy starts pounding on the stall door. I see his hand up at the top as he grabs the door and starts trying to shake it. I'm like, "Hey, what's going on? I'll be out in a minute," I screamed. Then all of a sudden he stops and I hear his feet turn around and he leaves and the door opens and shuts. I'm thinking maybe he was with somebody and he thought that that person was in the bathroom and it wasn't me. I exit the stall and I'm looking around. This is when I walk out the door. I open the restroom doors and look out, and I'm not looking back to see if anyone's behind me. I run as fast as I can to my car. I hear someone behind me, and I think to myself, "Oh my God, I left my car doors unlocked." I get to the car and get inside, and I do a burnout out of that parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I see a silhouette of a massive man, and he's standing in the parking lot watching me as I speed down. Uh, he threw it. This story has got to be made up. This story has got to be fake. He says he sees this massive silhouette of this massive man and he throws his hat down on the ground and begins jumping up and down. And he says, "Now, since this happened, I cannot bring myself to poop in a public bathroom." This one was 6 years ago, and this one is man staring at me over the bathroom stall. So this just happened at around 3 a.m. I was driving from Virginia to Maryland. I'd had a couple of sodas and a Red Bull to help me stay awake, so I got the urge to use the bathroom. I decided to stop at the next rest stop in Northern Virginia. When I get out of the car and start walking towards the bathrooms, I see a family. There's a family hanging around, and I'm thinking, okay, they're all just using the bathroom the same as me, and a couple of them were standing by the vending machines. So I go on inside to the men's room. I walk into the men's room through an open hallway. There's one guy in the bathroom, and he's a pretty big man. He's about 6'6" tall. Looks to me like I'm about 5'8" myself. Standing. Okay, so he's describing as he's walking in. He sees this really big man, and he was staring at himself in a mirror. And he says, I didn't think much about it. I just thought that's a really big dude. And I went on into the bathroom stall and shut the door. Instead of going to the urinal, he says, I went into the bathroom and I shut the door. So I'm using the bathroom, and I hear this dude outside walking around in the bathroom outside. And the next thing I know, he has come into the bathroom stall next to me. I continue doing my business, and this is when I start to get this creepy feeling. And out of the side of my eye, I see that this man who had been standing outside, this very tall man, was looking at me. I know these stories are supposed to be creepy, but I can't help but laugh. There's no one else in the bathroom. And he said after a second or two, I knew this guy was not in there using the bathroom. Because out of the corner of my eye, I could see this man. He was so massively tall that his entire head was over the top of the bathroom stall. And then I thought, well, it's very weird because he's not using the bathroom because he's staring at me. He was staring straight at me as I'm using the bathroom. I turned my head away, and I don't know what to do. The sense of dread was taking over me, and I'm imagining him grabbing me and pulling me out of this bathroom stall. He was so tall, he could have just reached over and grabbed me. His size, he could have blocked the door. He could have blocked the stall door or the exit door. I wouldn't have been able to get around him. When I finally finished peeing, which seemed like it took forever, I'm leaving the bathroom, and I notice the whole rest stop is now empty. This situation, as I'm walking to my car, I'm on the phone with my friend, which I guess in a way that was good because he's letting somebody know where he is and what's happening, and this creepy encounter took place. But also, is he able to be aware of his surroundings while he's on the phone? I took a quick look back, and I see the man is now slowly walking out of the bathroom as well. He appeared to be drunk. He appeared to be kind of stumbling like he was drunk. I make it to my car, and as I'm getting inside and locking my doors, the man walks all the way until he gets about 5 feet from my car, and he's just standing there at this point. I don't even bother to look at him. I just drive off quickly. I had to drive around him because he's just standing about 5 feet from me, and I didn't know what to do. I'm thinking, is he going to try to jump in front of my car or what? It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm the only person pulling out of this parking lot with this giant man. So I wonder if the other man at the other rest stop was the same man, because they were both described as being massive. This one is called Creepy Encounters, and this was Trucker at a Rest Stop. Now, this was posted 2 years ago. A few days ago, myself, Mel, and my girlfriend and I We're on the home stretch of a big road trip with our dog. It had been a while since we had stopped, so we pulled into a rest stop off of the freeway to stretch our legs. Now, it doesn't say where this was at. When we pulled into the rest stop, there were no cars in the parking lot, but over in the truck park, there was 3 big semi-trucks parked in a line. My girlfriend got out to go into the bathroom, and I leashed the dog and took the dog over into the area to walk the dog. And I heard someone yell. I heard a voice yelling out as though someone were trying to get my attention. So I looked around, and one of the truck drivers in the seat of his truck had his window rolled down and was sticking the top part of his body out of his truck, yelling something. And he said I couldn't hear it. The truck was running, and I couldn't hear over top of the truck because it was so loud. Now, I'm a pretty friendly person towards people, and so I'm looking over at the truck driver as he's yelling at me and waving his arm, and I noticed that he's an older gentleman with gray hair and sunglasses. So the truck was so loud that I'm yelling, "What?" And I'm holding up my hands, like gesturing that I can't understand what you're saying. I can't hear you. What are you saying? So the guy keeps talking and motioning toward me, and I'm just finally shrug my shoulders. So I walked about halfway between where my car was parked and his truck. I didn't want to get too close because I really didn't know what was up. But I was curious at this point, and I wanted to see what this guy was trying to say. So finally I got close enough that I could hear what he was saying. And he said, "Can you help me look for my phone? I lost it somewhere." So this guy's thinking, maybe he lost it over by the bathrooms. Maybe he lost it in the grass. Maybe he was wanting him to call the phone and see if it would ring so that he could see if he could hear it, So he was like, "Well, I was willing to help do that, but I just shrugged my shoulders." This caught me off guard, and I was like, "Well, what can I do to help look for someone's phone?" And I said, "Well, where did you lose it?" He said, "I lost it up here in the cab of my truck. Will you come up here and help me look for it?" And at this point, this guy, he says, I was sketched out. I thought, this is weird. I thought, am I about to be abducted, or are they trying to grab me and hold me long enough to go in and get my girlfriend out of the bathroom and abduct her? So he said, I thought, okay, should I call the phone? He said, I was just kind of, at this point, kind of halfway between life and thinking this is some kind of sick joke, or am I being punked in some way? And so I just said, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get up into your truck. He said after a couple of minutes, the guy kept yelling, "So you won't even help me look for my phone?" And he was like, "Well, dude, I'll call the phone number for you, but I'm not getting into the cab of your truck." And at this point, the guy's tone turned from, "Will you help me?" to like, "I can't believe you won't help me." And he was kind of getting gruff and angry sounding. He said the red flags just started flying every which way. So I put the doggo back into the car and pulled out my phone to pretend that I was calling the cops. I got somewhere between my car and the building where my girlfriend was, as I was trying to kind of protect her when she came outside. So the guy kept yelling at me saying, "Are you going to come and help me or not?" And I finally just turned around and said, "Get the f here, I'm calling the cops." He said after that, the guy stepped on the gas and exited toward the freeway. I stood there for a couple of minutes, and my girlfriend finally came out, and I told her about what happened. And she said, "Was you being, her thought was the same as my thought. Was I being punked? Was this guy playing some kind of trick?" He said, "I didn't know whether or not he was going to kidnap me or beat me up or rob me, or if somebody else was waiting in one of the other trucks while he held me while they ran in and grabbed my girlfriend up." He said, "We were almost afraid to pull back out on the highway, afraid that this guy might be waiting for us somewhere." He said, "But we finally, after a few minutes of sitting there, collected ourselves and pulled on out onto the highway, and we never did see the guy again. It happened at about 7:30 in the evening. This was 3 years ago. It was already getting dark outside, and me and my friend, both female, both 22 years of age, were about halfway on a 16-hour drive to Salem, Massachusetts. We both had to stop to use the bathroom, so we decided that we would stop in eastern Pennsylvania. So we pulled into a rest area, and we walked in, and the only other person inside was an older man. He looked to be about 60 years old. He was standing next to the vending machines talking on a phone. We walked on past him, and we went into the bathroom. We were in there for quite a while because we both used the bathroom, washed our faces, combed our hair, and just took our time, freshening up. When we were finished, we walked back outside, and we were both laughing at something. We started back to our car. We picked up our pace a little bit, and we were walking a little bit faster. Okay. When we were about to get into the car, I remembered that my boyfriend had told me to check the oil, as my car had been having some slight issues on the road. And when I described it to my boyfriend, he said, "You might need to check your oil." I thought I'll just wait until I get to a gas station, but I decided to go on ahead and pop the hood and check the oil. Before I knew it, this man was coming out of the building. Only he wasn't alone. This time there was a younger man with him, and they both started walking toward us. The younger one was on the sidewalk while the other man was walking along the parking lot along the side of the car. There were no other cars parked around my car, so I thought it was strange that they were walking directly towards us. My friend and I looked at each other, and we ran and jumped inside and locked the doors. But I realized I was still holding my dipstick, so I said, "What am I going to do?" We watched as the younger man walked slowly past the car, staring at us with a blank face. He continued to walk along the sidewalk, and he stopped for a few seconds and turned like he was going to come back toward us. The older man was within a few feet of my driver's side door. He then turned and walked past us to the other side of the parking lot. Once they were far enough away from me, I got out, put my dipstick back in, lowered my hood, and got back in. Locking the doors, I pulled straight out of there. And as I'm pulling out of the middle of the road, they're standing right in the middle of the road, and I had to go around them. I thought, there's no way these men are just standing in the middle of the road. As I went around them and I pulled out of the parking lot, I saw the two men go back into the building. So they weren't leaving. They weren't going back to their car. They came out of the rest area, and then after these two women got back into their cars and started to pull on out, the men started walking back up toward the building. So she thought, okay, they're probably going to wait for some other woman to show up. We were pretty shaken up about it, and we continued to talk about what could have happened. I don't know what their intentions were. I tried telling myself that everything was going to be okay, and then I just kept thinking about, what if another woman pulls in there? What if I hadn't seen the two men as I was under the hood of my car checking my oil, and they had walked right up to me? So she was pretty freaked out about that. I would have been too. But then again, I will say that I don't travel alone. I know there are people that do, and some people don't have any choice, but when I was 19, this was posted 3 years ago, and when I was 19, my mom and I were on an 8-hour road trip. We stopped at a large rest stop. This one was more like a gas station that had a food court, bathrooms, etc. It was like a truck stop where truckers could stop and take showers and that type of place. We had some sodas, and my mom was headed into the ladies' room while I sat at a nearby table. I was sitting there drinking my soda. I noticed a man staring at me. He looked really dirty, greasy, and something about him just kind of creeped me out. He walked over near the bathrooms, and he stood near the entrance to the men's room. He was watching women as they came out of the bathroom. A young woman walked out of the bathroom by herself, and he began following her through the food court. He was staying about 6 to 8 feet behind her, but if she stopped, he stopped. When she stopped to tie her shoe, he stopped. I watched him do this for several minutes, and then I realized he's following this woman. I decided to go over to her. I walked up to her, and I told her, "There's a man following you around this building." As soon as he saw me talking to her, he ran out of the building. Luckily, the woman said she wasn't alone and that her husband and her son were with her. It was scary to watch, knowing that this woman could have walked out of there by herself and have been grabbed or kidnapped. Now, this one was posted more recently. This one was actually just a few days ago. I recently came across this subreddit, and I thought I'd share an unsettling encounter that I had. This happened several months ago while I, male, was moving to Las Vegas. I arrived the night before. I was supposed to go the next day to get the keys to my new apartment. I didn't want to spend the money on a hotel room, so I decided to sleep a few hours until the sun came up at a Pilot travel stop. There was a parking area next to the side of the building with 3 or 4 rows of spaces. The furthest row was near a fenced-off area, and most of the spots were full of trucks and vans. Probably other drivers who were just stopped for the night or just stopped to get a few hours of rest. I parked in a space closest to the building as it had more light, and I decided to sit there and try to get a few hours of rest. I fell asleep in the driver's seat for about an hour when suddenly I was startled awake by the sound of someone walking by my car. I looked over and I saw a guy standing there, but he turned around and took off walking. After he walked a few feet away, he suddenly stopped and turned around, and he waved at me. And he started walking back toward my car. He said, "Hey man, sorry to wake you, but my car won't start, and I was wondering if you could give me a jump." I was half awake, but I was still kind of addled, like just woken up and kind of in that state where you're like, okay. So he says, "Sure, I guess I could help you out." So he says, "Great, just follow me." This was clearly a stupid decision on my part. This is the reader, this is the person that wrote this article talking here, and I will agree. I probably would have said, "I'm sorry, but if you call AAA or if you call the local police department, I'm sure they'll send someone out." So anyway, the guy goes on to say, "I started my car and drove around to where he was walking. He led me to the back row of the parking lot near the fence." At this point, I was starting to get this feeling of like, I should not have agreed to do this. I stopped my car about halfway and started thinking, just back up and drive off. He saw that I had stopped the guy, and he started waving his arms toward me to pull on up. For some stupid reason, I did, but I kept my windows up and my doors locked. As I pulled closer, I saw an old beat-up RV parked next to an even more beat-up pickup truck, which was filled with stuff in the bed of the truck. It could have been garbage. It could have been boxes. The truck was facing the fence with the back toward the parking row where I was. The guy was standing near the front of the truck, waving jumper cables and signaling for me to pull closer. The way the truck and the RV were positioned, there was barely enough space for a car to squeeze between them. Suddenly, a woman got out of the RV and began signaling for me to pull up. At this point, I was freaked out. I shouted out the window, "Hey, I'm not pulling up there. If the cables can't reach, you'll have to find someone else." She got angry and started screaming, "Just pull up, just pull up." And then the guy ran over to her, yelling for her to shut up and get back inside. He then walked over to my driver's side and he said, "Just pull up closer to the truck so I can hook the cables up and we'll be done." At this point, I was just, I'm like, I'm not going to do this. So I just said to the guy, "No, I'm not pulling up there." The way it sounds to me is though like he's describing it, it's like if he got close enough, he would be kind of fenced in between the fence and this truck. So his car would kind of be in a place where he would have trouble getting back out of. And if they raise his hood up to hook these jumper cables up, he's going to be in an even worse position because he's not going to be able to just flee out of there. So the situation just fell off, and he just said, "No, I'm not going to help with this." He gave me a really irritated look, and he said, "Seriously, I've got to get to my mom's house, man. I need to go." So okay, let me get back to where I was at. The guy gave him this story about, "I got to get out of here, I got to start my car." But the guy that's telling the story, he just said, "No, this just does not feel right." So he started backing out. He says, "As I was backing out and pulling out to leave, I saw the woman get out of the RV and started shouting at the man, pointing at me. I couldn't tell what she was saying, but I got out of there as quickly as I could, and I went on down the road and found another place to spend the rest of the night. I don't know if they really needed help or if it was some kind of setup, but the way that he had his truck pulled in there with the front end of his truck pulled up close to this fence just didn't make any sense. Especially you would think if somebody was maybe having car troubles, that they would point their vehicle in a position where they maybe would think I might end up needing a boost. So I'm going to pull the front of my truck out towards where another vehicle could get to it. So the guy was just like, "I got out of there. I don't know if this would have ended up being something really bad, but it just felt wrong." And he was probably right to follow his instinct because he probably would have ended up getting robbed. I think the creation of the internet and sharing of these types of stories have put people in so much fear that sometimes just seeing another person, especially when you're out someplace alone and someone just happens to pull up, it can be kind of scary. But maybe not everybody is out to do something bad. And I thought about the story about the man who pulled in and was looking and rummaging through the back of his truck. And then later, these people saw the same man. I can remember, I can't remember where it was at, but I remember seeing the same man. I think I saw him in one store, maybe Royal King or Tractor Supply, one of those types of stores. I remember seeing him, and then I remember seeing him later in a restaurant. And so sometimes people are just going in the same places you're going, not necessarily following you. I didn't get the hint or the sense that the guy was following me, or maybe he thought I was following him. But sometimes stuff like that happens. And the way these people describe this as being out on this very desolate place where it's so far in between stores, restaurants, gas stations. Maybe he was going to the same town they were going to because he also needed gas, or maybe he also needed something from the store. So, and there are people out there, and a lot of my listeners may wonder if sometimes what you might take to be somebody dangerous is somebody meant to be there it may be in your time of need. And if you have a strange story of something that happened to you while you were traveling, something that maybe happened at a hotel or a rest stop or a restaurant, or something that was just kind of a red flag behavior of someone, or something that happened to you, feel free to share it in the comments. I know this video was a little bit long. This is going to be the last video that I post for probably close to 2 weeks, as I'm going to take a little vacation and a little family time. I will be back, and I do hope that everybody sticks around and doesn't forget about me. And I was just having a little bit of fun with this video. I know it's a little different than some of the ones that I normally do. And I hope everybody enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.